My name is Debra, and I'm an alcoholic. And I have been guided through these steps as they're laid out in our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a loving God, with a couple of big book step study sponsors, with groups just like this one. And I have some good support to continue making my amends. And I practice the latter steps every day as best that I can. Denise, thank you so much for asking me to be here today. So I'm just kind of looking around the room and just kind of connecting with God who's in you. And it was just so nice to drive out to Worcester. My grandparents met out here, and just to be in this particular church is very special. So we're on step 5 today. So here, talking about step 5, it suggests that that I have a foundation of steps 1 through 4. So I was able to sit down with someone that I trusted, and she could ask me those questions. In the very beginning, could I fully admit that I was powerless, that I was all through, and that there was no door left but this door of recovery. And could I see that my life had indeed become unmanageable? And I'm grateful that the person that I was working with could see that I could honestly, if she really believed me, that I was through. And so then the next question was, did I believe that there was a power greater than me that could restore me to sanity? So that meant that I was ready to look at, what was I acting illogically? Was I? Someone talked about the definition of insanity recently, and one of the synonyms that came up on their phone was irresponsible. For me to put irresponsibility right there with insanity, and so I had no trouble seeing that there was a God and that He could restore me to sanity. And then together, we entered into God's presence. We got on our knees together, and I made that commitment to turn my will and my life over to this God of my understanding, this God that I am so grateful to have gotten to know better, who puts me in company with groups like this, in places like this, to turn my will over, to turn my life over. It means, for me, it meant to be examining my thinking, to see what thoughts were coming from God and what thoughts were coming from my disease, and to let that govern how I behaved with other people, especially my family. And so then came the fun part of actually taking that notebook out and doing the writing. And I'm so grateful that the person that walked me through that, she kept it very simple, so that I didn't have 20 books in the closet somewhere, but that, it was just a few words. And she kept telling me, we alcoholics are such storytellers, she said. Keep it short, and I started writing, as it says, where was I selfish, what was I trying to take out of life instead of giving back? What was going on with my thinking? What kind of mental gymnastics and acrobatics was I doing to try to get what I wanted? And then the resentment. How did I react when I didn't get what I want? And then was I afraid? In what ways was I afraid? And how was that driving that whole circle of wanting? And so together between this God that has come into our lives and this woman who gave of her time and made me feel like the time that we spent together was the most important thing that she could be doing, and myself, we came to this place where it was time to start meeting and to read what I had written. And so the way we did it is I would come and visit her in 2-hour increments. The days were over for her when she would do the 3-day-long, get the cabin in the woods and just go to it, finish it in 2 or 3 days. But that worked well for me too. So this is a step study meeting, and we say in our group conscience that the purpose of this meeting is to study the steps. So let's just go back for a second to the writing, to the reading. On the very first page, it addresses, I don't know about you, but when I first saw the steps, the one that scared me the most was this one. And I'm here to share with you that by the time that I got to it, I had allowed God to pull me closer and closer, but I was so looking forward to those sit-downs with my sponsor. So it talks about that. It talks about on this first page of how important it is that we give this away. It's so tempting to think, well, I've written it down. God hears this. God sees the writing on my page. But it was so powerful to sit with her and to say this out loud. Just a cute little story about the times that we would gather together. She owned a great big old golden retriever. So actually, I shared this with God, another person, a great big old loving dog. God spelled backwards, right? So the first time I came to her house, the dog sat next to me. He was actually cuddled up against me, and we hung out for the 2 hours, and he fell fast asleep. And the next time I came, the poor dog, he knew what was coming. He went to the other end of the house as far as he could. And we notice in the language of this book, this book is a living document, and it takes us back to the time of when it was written. And it talks about being careful who you ask on the next couple of pages. It talks about, be careful that the person knows how vital this is, how important this is to our survival. And we don't experience that today. Isn't it interesting? It's more that person knows better than we how important this is that we continue to go through with this. So I'm going to ask you, if I pause a little bit to kind of gather my thoughts, don't feel embarrassed for me, but let's just use the time to get even closer to this God that we're learning to love so much. There's a line in our big book that says, "Be quick to see where religious people are right." And it was one of the places where Bill didn't have to argue to write it as a suggestion. He writes it as a command. He says, "Be quick to see where religious people are right to the degree that we're able." So then on the top of page 74, it talks about how some of us have a religious affiliation that has a form of a step 5. So I want to tread lightly here and honor our traditions. I notice that when I stay with that, it's kind of like sitting down with God, or entering onto the stairway to the place where God lives, to heaven. It's a real formal way of just staying current with my step 5. So I can't encourage that enough. If that's something that people have access to, and if we don't have access to, I know a lot of people have taken the steps so that can be part of their program. and at first, I would resist that. And now, when that day comes every week, to run to that and to just really feel God's presence through another person. So there are the set of promises that we all think of, but there are actually promises sprinkled all the way through every reading. So the promises that we all come to associate with step 5, they're about halfway down page 75, and they talk about our fears falling away from us. And the reading talks about taking that quiet hour, so that last session that we take with our sponsor to just read out loud all this stuff. There's something powerful about it's captive on the page. We say it out loud. It goes out into the air. God receives it, through the heart and mind and the understanding of God, of this other trusted person. I heard one way of talking about it. It's like it rises up to heaven, and it becomes, it becomes forgiveness. It sprinkles back down as forgiveness, the gift of understanding, and the gift of compassion, so that I can get ready to work with somebody else. Because in that quiet hour that I took right after the reading, I could actually feel a sensation of stuff leaving me. I actually could see something in my mind's eye of just what I didn't need actually leaving me. And the promises talk about, being able to look people in the eye. Doesn't that make sense? Because we've looked at where we were wrong. We've looked at our stuff. And we're in a forgiving spirit. It talks about beginning to have that spiritual experience, continuing to develop this friendship, and really it is a friendship. One of the ways I continue that spiritual experience, continue growing that experience, is I have a notebook, and I write in it, to my dearest friend, and I'm talking about God, and I tell him how I feel about him. I tell him about how my day is. And I talk about, whatever it is. Then I just sit in his presence. And I'm going to tell you that when I sit in that way, I feel, and again, it's something about putting pen to paper and making that active connection with him. And I feel his presence so nearly. So if any of you have tried that, and you want to ever share that with me at a meeting, I'd love to hear about that. And at the end of the reading, it reviews the first 5 proposals, it says. When I was new to Big Book, we would talk about the first 5 proposals here in this reading, and I was too afraid to ask anybody. I thought to myself, I know there are steps. Oh my gosh, there's a set of proposals too, until it dawned on me, oh yeah, the proposals are the steps. And the last thing I'll share with you is, it was such a struggle for me and my sponsor. God bless her. I'm sure she's become a saint through the process of working with people like me, right? She hung in with me, never gave up on me. And it was such an effort for me to grow in me the desire to take that quiet hour with God every single day as best I could, even with the kids. And she was kind to me. She said, look, there are days when you're only going to have 5 minutes. Whether it's 1 minute or 5 minutes, at that appointed time that, you've made that commitment to God, don't let him down. She said, just keep that going and just start again the next day. And then finally I realized, because I kept thinking to myself, with our alcoholic brains, oh my gosh, pretty soon I'll be done with this. And it was just this thing of getting it done and not having to, try to find that hour. And then I said to her, oh, gosh, the light shines. We take a quiet hour with God every day. That's part of, because I'm going to have to do these ladder steps. She's like nodding her head and smiling, and so pray with me, and I'm praying with you, because I'm working better at taking that full hour as best I can with the full lives that we have today. So, it's really good, again, to sit here. I could see that this is just such a special meeting, I don't see any crosstalk going on, I see everybody just really invested in seeking God, the warm-heartedness of this area. I live closer to the city, about, I don't know how many miles east of here. In Big Book, this is where, I don't really tell my story. I mean, you heard kind of pieces of my story. This is the place where we really focus on the step. And there are other kinds of meetings where we can tell our story, or talk about our stories before and after the meeting. This is also not the place I've been instructed to compare this kind of meeting to other meetings. It's so beautiful that in this meeting you read the longer form of the tradition, and how powerful it is in this kind of meeting for people that have gone through the work thoroughly to be looking at the traditions, and particularly looking at the tradition of unity these days, that we focus on this meeting and without the need to compare this meeting to other kinds of meetings. So listen, I'm going to walk away from here, adding you to my prayer list, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on this road of happy destiny, and maybe having some of you speak out in the Framingham area as well. God love you, and I love you too.